Good afternoon, friends. David Wright here, and I am your host of the Disruptive Innovators Champions of Digital Business podcast. And excited to say that today I am lucky enough to be joined by Jan Husby. Jan, it's a pleasure to have you on.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So Jan, for those of our listeners who may not be familiar with you, can you tell everyone just a little bit about your current role?
So I'm Chief Information Officer at PRA Group, which is a global company, 4 continents, depending on how you count them, and I oversee IT, data, and analytics worldwide in PRA.
Yeah, I know, traded on the NASDAQ, a huge company. Excited to learn more about what you guys are up to at PRA. But before we do, like to just ask, first and foremost, one piece of actionable advice you might look to leave our listeners with today.
Well, one that comes to mind is start simple. So there's always opportunity to make things complicated later, and starting simple can be useful learning and may change some of the plans you have later.
You know, I really appreciate that advice because, for me, it can be really easy to future trip, especially entrepreneur scaling multiple businesses, a lot of client demands, complex projects. It can get overwhelming if I let it be. If I can kind of keep things simple and just take one step at a time, um, the advice just really resonates with me. So, I think that's a great place to kick off the episode. Um, so Jan, I'm interested, I can hear your accent, right? And we actually talked, before the episode about English not being your, first language. So interested to learn a little bit more just about you, as an individual, kind of where you started out and how you got to the point in your career where you're the, CIO of a publicly traded, international powerhouse.
Yeah, I I'll start with my second US experience. I took a bachelor's degree at Worcester Polytechnic Institute in Massachusetts, and then shortly after a master's in computer science at Cornell. Um, and then went back to Norway, worked for partly in Norway, partly in the UK for Cable and Wireless, the telco company, for a while in their venture arm. Um, and then and led their subsidiary in Scandinavia. So it's sort of like a regional headquarters in Oslo, in Norway. And then uh, after that, after a few years on that, I actually went on to insurance and took my first job as a non-technical leader in a way. So I led the corporate customer division of Zurich Financial Services in Norway for a few years. Uh, and exciting times and interesting being the IT guy who suddenly was to lead an insurance division, a turnaround and a successful one. So it turned out nicely. And then after that, I left to do a couple of startups, which is an interesting experience. You're just a handful of people starting up what you think is going to be something big but in the beginning it isn't. And Monday is scarce and everyone has to do everything. And even if you're IT and software development, you do sales and you do essentially everything. So that was, you know, interesting learning, I think, life learning, essentially. And then I went on after that, in 2006, I started in a company called Active Capital in Oslo, in Norway. And in 2014, and so it's going to be 10 years this summer, PRA acquired that company. And that company is now PRA Group Europe. We had operations in 9 European countries and in Canada. And so that became what now is PRA Group Europe. And that's, again, led me. I was CIO for Europe for a while, and then I got this position as the global CIO about a year and a half ago. So that's why I'm here.
Wow, super cool. Well, what would you say, Jan, is one of the most important things that you learned over the course of your journey? And maybe you could talk a little bit about what life was like before learning that fact and after.
So, I went to universities that were very research oriented, and then I had parents that were academics, and you have to prove everything, right? And you have to go around and say you cannot just make a statement or a call. You have to actually prove everything. You have to proper research and test groups and everything. And so I kind of, I kind of, I'm not sure if I didn't trust my own judgment, but I didn't feel it was sufficient. And then so I didn't really rely on my own judgment. And I've come to understand that I can do that. And also, of course, the more experience you get, the more you can trust your judgment. So you get better judgment. Um, and then also learning. So that was like a, a big but slow experience to come into that, to understand that I can do that. And also look at other people's judgments and, listen to them and hear whether, in some cases they are wild guesses, but in other cases they're actually very educated, input and very valuable, part of the whole picture. Um, and so, and I started, I started studying mathematics and computer science. And, in mathematics, everything is absolute. So there are no exceptions, and the rule is there, and it's hard. 2 + 2 = 4, no matter how you put it, and then, or whatever the temperature is, right? And so, um, so I like that, but I've come to later in life, I've come to even, as with the judgment, I've come to understand that those are more or less the only absolutes, and I've come to appreciate the fact that that the other things aren't.
Yeah. No, I love that. And no, that's definitely been true for me too. Um so yeah, great learnings. What about a time, Jan, that you either had a project fail or you went through a difficult time personally or professionally, but ultimately you took away a profound learning from the event or something of that nature. Anything come to mind?
Yes, actually, it does. And then something I'm still working on. So because I think it's important. I didn't in the beginning. I was very careful about speaking up, and I wasn't sure whether what I had to say was right or relevant or pertinent or whatever. And then so I didn't, or I was careful about doing that, and I didn't until I was dead certain about what I was going to say was right. And then I realized that on many occasions I should have spoken up. And then I've experienced later in life, as I do speak up, I realize that there are other people in the room, and not necessarily the most outspoken ones, who should speak up, right? And I'm sure we could have avoided some pretty good amount of mistakes if we had encouraged people to speak up at the right time and actually come with their reservations or whatever their views must be. So I think that is good. And in PRA now, we're working on creating a culture where people dare speak, speak their minds and talk about what they're thinking of without, you know, being concerned that not being the right thing.
Yeah. Well, that's really cool. I mean, it's amazing as a leader that you had that experience, and now you can help kind of try to bring that out in others. And I think it ties back to what you were saying about, wanting to have, and this is true for me too, like wanting to have it right before I bring it up. Where on the flip side, the inclination or the how you phrased it before, the belief maybe without the evidence quite yet may be useful just in its own inception, versus needing to, prove it out down the line. And I think that creating that culture, based on what I've heard from other leaders and even in my experience, really is at the root of innovation. Because if I'm creating a culture of innovation, I want people to feel comfortable trying things out, uh, building feedback loops where I could understand what's working and what's not working, um, integrating that feedback and then keeping it moving, right? And continuously kind of improving in an agile form. So, yeah, I think that's great that you guys are doing that. So, and I'm actually interested to kind of dive a little bit deeper into what you guys are up to at PRA. Um, but before we get into that, I just always like to ask, favorite book or literary piece, either that you've read recently or all time, your choice.
So I think one book that really got to me. It's called Cyber Crisis. The author is Eric Cole, and he's a well-known cybersecurity expert. He's worked for a government, and he's got a good he's got a good take on it. He's got so it's not, you can come out about information security, cybersecurity, and be absolute about it, and it isn't, right. So there's a risk picture, and you need some pragmatism, you need some realism into it, and he's got that. So that's interesting.
Yeah. No, I got to check that out. I don't think I've, no, I haven't read that yet. So, good one to note here. Um, so let's get into it a little bit, Jan. So global CIO, PRA Group. Talk to us a little bit about, PRA as an organization, what you guys are up to, and maybe what your vision for IT and technology is, based on the overarching mission of the organization.
So so PRA is so we're in a relatively small sector as the financial services go, but PRA is a big company, and we are interested in developing ourselves to be a trusted leader in the business. And trust is important in this business. So that is a goal in itself. We want to do the right things for the right reason. We want to create long-term shareholder value. We're listed, and we want to create value for our shareholders. Um, and also, I think in doing that, if you have that kind of vision, and that's where you're going, you'll also attract the right people. So you'll get the right talent, you'll get the right people, hopefully retain them, and then make sure that, for example, when we do, as a lot of companies, we're looking at the balance between insourcing, outsourcing, offshoring, and in that process that we have a healthy balance, and that we also keep some things internal so that we don't outsource all the fun stuff.
Yeah, that makes sense. And so, in doing all of that, maybe talk to me a little bit about some of the key initiatives that you guys are working on.
Yeah, so right now, we are very keen to align our IT platform, our IT systems, our tools, our capabilities to the company's strategy, and to the financial performance. And there's a ton of stuff we can do. Of course, in IT, there's also always a case for efficiencies and implementing that, on the cost side, but there's also on the customer side, and in the dialogue with our customers on the digital side. So we are working with non-performing loans, but we are working in the retail. This is real customers, and the IT team must be able to support the way we want to communicate, customers want to communicate, and how we want to set up and treat the customers. And one way to do that is through the tools and through the channels. through which we communicate with them, but also around how the results of our analytics, what is the best solution for this customer? What is the best way to approach or communicate with this customer? And then we're trying to share our insights into the global operation, right? So we experience, big volumes in some countries, less so in others, but different kind of structures, different kind of uh, legal environments, and then we're trying to leverage our understanding and our knowledge and how we handle that in the different countries, so that we can take learnings from one country, apply to another, um, and including having teams from various continents work with each other on the same day, for example.
Yeah. No, that's very cool. Love the big data use cases and, um, in regard to understanding customer experience and preference, I think the more that you can make that experience, we always say, highly personalized and radically convenient. The more I can accomplish that, the better. What about some of the biggest challenges facing PRA as an organization today?
One is that our business is highly regulated, and it should be. This is, and that is, as a consequence of that, we need to understand our customers. We need to understand their preferences. We need to, you know, uh, be careful to communicate in the right way, in the right frequency. Um, and that also means our systems must adapt to this. So having that, um, data privacy, customer treatment embedded into the systems becomes important. Um, and then, that part of the picture doesn't become less complex. It changes all the time. I mean, just here in the United States, we have 50 states enacting laws every day and regulation every day. We need to keep on top of that, and we need to be able to align our communications and our offers to our customers along with that, and the systems need to support it. So that is definitely a big challenge.
Yeah, I can imagine so. What about some of the most maybe innovative things that you're most excited about that are either that you guys are working on today or that are on the horizon, on the roadmap? Can you share us, maybe the implications of artificial intelligence or, just some of the maybe the newer technologies and how they might impact the business you guys are doing?
As many other companies, we are always looking to leverage new technology, but selectively in a way. So in a way that supports our business and this supports our compliance requirements. Um, we've done some innovations around the horn. I'll mention in the UK um, we're using a new solution that will underway as our customer representatives speak to the customers, is able to support them real time with remember to ask for this, or have you, why don't you suggest this? It's a great tool, and it's a great support for the representatives. And I think, that is it. Everything like that is fun to do, right? So you get new technology on board. You test it out. Sometimes it doesn't work, but when it does, it's fantastic. Um, and then uh, I'd like to mention, well, around the UK team, in fact, all the teams are doing. So um, they're taking on also, but not only work, but beside their work, they're taking on various support initiatives around for the community. So we're happy, with local debt charities. We had great initiatives in the UK, fantastic initiatives in Poland on that. So the team is not only doing work, and they're doing this together. So we have infrastructure, and a setup for leave, to be able to support that. It happens all over the world, but in for different charities and different purposes.
No, that's really cool. I love to hear that. Um, I did want to double back to Jan. Yeah, I meant to ask you about any best practices that you and your team follow. I think, you have, a unique, versus some of our other, guests and listeners, responsibility over, uh, a global team, right? IT representatives and, multiple contents, many different countries. What are some of the best practices you and your team follow?
So, I think the way we work in PRA and the way we work globally is work closely with compliance. That is important, and compliance isn't just checking a box in PRA. It's actually complicated, and you've probably heard about European data protection regulation. You've heard about consumer protection regulation in the US and in various countries, and this is important, and it's regulated for a reason. So that's a good thing. So we are working with compliance, working with our legal representatives is important, because then you get off to the right start, and you don't have to backtrack and go back and do things. So I think so. So that is one. I think another one is, we've been, as every other company that has an internet facing service, we're being attacked every day. And in my 30 years, more than 30 years in this business, it's got, more and more, the cyber attackers have become more and more creative, better technically, and we need to meet those challenges. And then of course we have mechanical measures. We have, all the measures we have to ensure safety and to handle any events that come up. But also very importantly is to train people, to get people aware. The weakest link is usually the person on the keyboard, and that is vital. And so we do training on a systematic basis, on a regular basis, but we also do unsystematic testing and training, to make sure people stay aware.
Love that. Love that. And that is certainly, an advisable best practice in this day and age more than ever. Um, so Jan, a couple last questions I have while I have you. One would be, where do you see the financial services industry going in the future, and or what do you think will be some of the biggest changes as time passes?
But I think we'll see consumers continue to take on new technology quickly, and I see new technology coming now. It's so easy to pick up that people do. It's convenient, it's transparent, it's easy, and we need to be there to do that. We need to make sure that we are able to communicate and have a dialogue with the customer on their premises, because they decide now, right? And so, uh, back in the day when when you stood with your hat in your hand in the bank branch, that's gone. That doesn't happen anymore. We have a completely different situation, and that will evolve. I'm certain. Uh, I think also we will have the ability to learn more about our customers. We have data, we have other sources of information. We have, in some cases, customers providing us information, um, that is valuable for that dialogue, and for how we come to, how we work together with the customer to come to the best possible solution. So that'll be, and we see data source. So we have more data sources, but we also have data that we haven't leveraged, right? So there's always the opportunity to leverage more data to become better and more fluent at it.
Yeah. Um, and I hope, both of those things are true, not just for the financial services industry, but for, other industries as well. Like that's how I want my healthcare experience to be. And at least in the United States at the current moment, it's far from that. So, yeah, fingers crossed. Uh, anyway, Jan, this has been great. Last question I have for you is just if you could go back 5, 10, even 15 years in time, what advice would you give your younger self?
Well, I think one definitely would be don't accept things as they are. Don't be complacent. And don't take status quo to be what's best. And again, speak up. We talked about that earlier. So speak up and say your mind, but also listen to others when they speak up because they might see something you missed. So so that's an important balance. I think if you do that, then I think positive change comes about.
Great way to cap things off, Jan. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for taking the time today.
And thank you for having me.
A lot of fun for me. Thank
Yeah,
you.
absolutely. And to our listeners, thank you for tuning
Thank you
in,
for tuning in
and
today.
we will catch you
We'll catch you
all
all next
next
week.
week.